Welcome along, everyone, to this LLMs in Finance Certificate Information session, which is going to be presented by Miguel Nogue Alonso, who is a very highly renowned lecturer at NYU, at Columbia. He's got a long history in this field. He's also founder of the Artificial Intelligence Finance Institute. This is obviously, LLMs is a huge topic area in this field. It's probably the topic area that everybody wants to get familiar with. So we're going to spend about an hour, I would say, covering all aspects of this program. In particular, Miguel is going to break down the syllabus of the program in a lot of detail. So Miguel, I shall hand over to you. And if anybody's got any questions, incidentally, after this event in the coming days, in the coming weeks, then you should all have my email address and my contact details. My name is Jeff Brown. I forgot to mention that. So feel free to get in touch with me whenever you like. Over to you, Miguel.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff, for this kind introduction. So we are today in this hour presenting actually the second cohort of the LLMs in Finance certificate. We already offered one in June. And so we tested the program. We saw that the obviously topics are very timely and important. And here we're back again. We're also offering in October the bootcamp, which is a program that it's wider and it's broader in its coverage, because the bootcamp we offer, supervised and supervised reinforcement learning, and obviously NLP and LLMs. But this program that I'm going to talk about this evening is fully devoted to large language models in finance. Just a quick intro of our organization. So AFI was founded 6 years ago when artificial intelligence was starting to emerge as something important in finance. Back then, not everybody was on board with the idea of using, I don't know, reinforcement learning or deep neural networks or trees or XGBoost on some of the most advanced algorithms we show in our programs. So back then, not everybody was on board. Certainly, things have been, advancing in the direction we kind of foresaw back then, right? With the idea these algorithms are able, or many of AI algorithms with a reasonable amount of data can do lots of things in finance. Also, obviously, another big milestone was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, if you remember, right? Basically, GPT-4 was launched, right? Back then, okay? Back then, we all opened our account in a language model, and obviously, well, there was a range of different opinions from, oh, this is extremely good, this can help me a lot, to, oh, this does a lot of mistakes, this offers this has hallucinations, and this doesn't, I don't know, some sort of cover my needs. This year, after testing them, after we I'll introduce myself in a second, right? But after we have an accumulated experience of, I don't know, 60 years. I myself have 30 years experience on finance. as a CEO, chief investment officer, as a quant, and so on. And we quickly saw the potential of LMMs, large language models, into some sort of taking over. Well, taking over is it's obviously a big word, but certainly augmenting the productivity of financial professionals, right? Financial institutions, asset managers, banks, and so on, right? So we'll learn during the course that basically, all tasks that require a bit of text or a sequence of numbers or both, which is basically finance, right? Finance is in the end, when we want to invest some sort of tasking, we will have to digest information, right? Information that comes in obviously returns from the market, volumes, ratios, revenues, income, US GAAP, and all that kind of stuff, right? And we do think that LLMs are going to be at the center of financial engineers, financial professionals, in order to do that, right? In order to do these tasks. So it's also clear, right, that LLMs, some sort of have obviously flaws, right, and that's what's part of our job. So our job is help you, the delegates of this program, to integrate, right, large language models in finance. Offering these new ways to process information, analyze data, interact with customers, right? No question, if you have interacted, I'm sure everybody in the audience has interacted with an LLM, you have the impression, right, that you kind of are interacting with a quite, I would say, advanced, sophisticated financial user. I'm not saying, right, they know everything about finance. We'll talk about that during the course, right? So what are the gaps? What are the things, again, that we need to fix? So the idea of the course is to delve into the essentials of LLMs, the practical applications in finance, and also hands-on implementation technologies, techniques. Right. And again, why is that? Because of the raw LLMs are getting better and better, but certainly LLMs can have gaps in their knowledge, right? That oftentimes lead to hallucinations, right? Oftentimes they're cutoff issues. So the LLM has read until, I don't know, April, right? But after that, it doesn't know anything. Or certainly, right, the LLMs do not know about our internal documents, our internal analytics, and so on and so on and so forth, right? So LLMs read basically publicly available information, right? And certainly we do have in financial institutions, obviously, a lot of non-publicly available information, for example, information about our customers, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to deal also with privacy issues, safety issues, interpretability issues, and so on and so forth, right? So our job during the program will be, again, showing you how we can safely use them for things like financial charts, right? Financial analysts, and so on and so forth. Today, we have launched a paper in SSRN called Large Language Models and Financial Analysts, right? And in the paper, we basically state the idea that LLMs can be, a very good, AI helper, right? I think I heard in a chat somebody calling, I think it was a physics chat that was using the word helper, AI helper. One sec, there's a question. Yeah, it's in SSRN, right? Okay, you'll find it in my LinkedIn profile. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Maybe before, who are, maybe I'll change a bit the order, right? Just to make sure that we, right? So I am the co-founder and chief science officer at the AIFI. I have, more than 30 years experience, right, in banking asset management. First at a big bank in Europe, and then UBS, and now as again, in Artificial Intelligence Finance Institute. I also been teaching at pretty much all New York universities, like Columbia University for 7 years, right? NYU for 5. I also taught some courses at Cornell and so on, and also at the Imperial College in London. And I have a PhD in quantitative finance. I also, I taught the first big data in finance course in the United States in 2016, right? When, if you remember, I guess that all the delegates in the room will remember that what we now call AI was in 2016 called big data in finance. Like, with the idea we have big data sets, and with these big data sets we can do a lot of stuff, right? We can do a lot of stuff with all these fantastic algorithms. Obviously in 2016, right, obviously transformers weren't even born, right? But we had SBMs, super vector machines, we had trees, right? Not XGBoost, but trees and so on. So we have let's say the first generation of neural networks, and LSTMs were already there, right? Okay, so back then again, and now we have all these, fantastic algorithms that can help us do stuff. Also in the faculty, we have Anane Dupoy. She's an algorithmic trader in a French bank based in Paris. And she's has had a rich, multifaceted career spanning for 13 years in investment banking. And she's a dynamic, innovative professional. And if you follow her on LinkedIn, she's sharing there some of the materials, right, that we are using in the courses. So we use a mix of slides, lots of notebooks, right? So you're gonna go home with lots of useful notebooks, and again, right, we are doing a lot, right, ourselves to some sort of built up knowledge on the use and obviously in improvement of the several gaps that LLMs, which are a wonderful tool for finance, as we will try to convince you. So it is our, obviously duty again to some sort of make them as safe as possible, try to avoid hallucinations, and so on and so forth. We also have in the faculty Nicole Koenigsteen. Nicole Koenigsteen is just a fantastic practitioner. She's teaching coding in our AI in Finance Bootcamp, and she's the author of a couple of books, very good books. One is Maths for Machine Learning, and the second is In the Making, right? And fourth, we have David Pacheco Aznar, who's the chief AI researcher at Raven Risk AI, a startup dealing with credit risk. And he's also a member of our faculty. And with him, we have written, right, a couple of books. One will be published during our LLM course, who's going to be called AI in Finance, which has 2 volumes, right? I think it's going to be a really good book. One is about unsupervised, supervised, and NLP, and the second volume is going to be a review of reinforcement learning, right? So we haven't even announced that, but again, the second volume. We also have ready with somebody who's in the room a book on quantitative portfolio optimization. Hello, Alberto, right? Okay, so and Julian. So the book will soon be out too, right? Anyway, so let's deep dive a bit in what's going to be the course lecture, right? So we're going to have 9 lectures, right? So which basically it's 9 weeks, right? Every week, what we do is we release a 2-3 hour lecture, right? A recording, right? Which we update obviously ourselves, and we offer every Monday an hour office hours. So every Monday you'll have access to the professor to talk about the previous lecture, right? So this has worked very well on the first cohort, and we think is a really good format. So just to make we will make our best effort into having top quality lectures, right? Again, we have the experience of the first cohort, so we've made a few adjustments, but so in lecture 1, we're going to be talking about an intro to LLMs, right? So what are LLMs? So I'm going to be talking the second half of this lecture, if I have time, a bit about this. But obviously, what's an LLM? So, you know, this autoregressive, some sort of transformer-based large language model. It's funny because I didn't mention that, but when we started the institute back then in 2018, we started doing NLP, natural language processing, which is obviously at the heart of what LLM is. If we just don't consider, right, transformers at the beginning, we were doing kind of, right, and I think this is important. The experience we have in let's say old school NLP, it's also very useful when it comes to understanding what's going on in the LLM, understanding how we can tweak the LLM, right? Again, LLMs have plenty of limitations, so we'll after the first lecture in which we some sort of talk about the LLM foundations. Also, we're going to talk about the different models, right? There's for the ones who started doing NLP, let's say 2 years ago, you will be surprised to discover there's still a lot of people using BERTs and Roberta and SentenceBERT and all that kind of stuff, in addition to open closed source LLMs like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, like GPT-4, GPT-4o, sorry, and Gemini Advanced, right, which are the commercially available. In addition, well, we have all the open source. We have all the open source LLMs like Llama 3, for example, which were lagging behind the incredible abilities of for example GPT-4, but are quickly catching up, right? And obviously, not all financial users, right, can deal with let's say closed source LLMs. right? So also choosing, so model selection here also is an issue, right? Which one is the one that suits me best, right? So this is something also that financial professionals or financial institutions and also supervisors, I didn't mention that, but obviously supervisors like the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the Banco de España, and so on are obviously using LLMs. They get huge amounts of text, and when you have text, you should start thinking about using LLMs. Okay, on lecture 2 we'll start talking about applications and limitations, right? Limitations are right, a big part of the work of the, I don't know how to call it, if it's a financial LLM expert or a financial engineer that has some sort of an LLM and so on. But obviously, we'll continue a bit with the LLM foundations, and then we'll start discussing LLMs limitations, which is knowledge cutoff, domain-specific challenges, and what are the solutions, right? And obviously, I guess that everybody now knows that the way we interact with LLMs is through prompting, right? Which is our first, is to talk to it, so to speak, to ask if it knows something about, cohomology in finance, right? To Claude 3.5 Sonnet, we ask, do you know something about this? And so, can you tell me something about this? Or can you tell me something about NVIDIA third quarter, right, results, right, and so on. So prompting, and then obviously fine tuning, and then retrieval-augmented generation. So we'll be talking about prompt engineering, right? Try to explore techniques of zero-shot learning, few-shot learning, and so on. We were basically using the word zero-shot and few-shot learning, let's say, more at the beginning of it than probably now, right? We cannot guarantee that when we try to do something with our LLM, we're going to get zero-shot learning. We can obviously, if the machine has in its data set, I don't know who won the Premier League in 2020, for example, right? So obviously here we can expect zero-shot learning, right? When we're doing more elaborated tasks, we can't. Also, we will learn during the course that there are different kinds of questions that we want to ask to the LLMs, right? Some questions that we ask to the LLMs have a grounded answer. For example, what are the revenues of Apple in 2022, right? Year to year, so September to September. So this is something that we can expect the LLM be able to answer zero-shot because it's in the data set, and it will find it several times, and it'll probably answer with precision, right? As who won the Super Bowl last year, right? And so on. Other questions, right, like prospective questions, or let's say do not have a grounded answer. Okay, so we need to also understand, right, the different domains in which we're working with the LLM. Let me give you one example, right? Obviously, if we ask GPT-04 what's going to be the impact, right? So let's do it. So, okay, so let's do it. So I'm going to ask a question that certainly, it's not in the data set. It can't be, okay. It can be in the data set. For example, what is going to be but it's very important in finance, right? As I usually say that in finance, many of the decisions we're taking are about the future, not about the past, right? Certainly, LMMs can help us navigate the past because they've probably have read everything relevant for us in a specific domain, like for example, what were Apple revenues in second quarter 2024. Okay, so this is a question that typically, the LLM should be able to answer, right? Because it's read the financial press. It hasn't read 10Ks and 10Qs, which is another question, right? Okay, let me see there. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course. No, we'll be talking, extensively about prompting and also obviously about reasoning, right? Um, okay. Yeah. Okay. So again, we've just finished a paper on reasoning for LLMs in finance, right? So we'll be talking about, right? But I was just at, okay. So this was kind of but many sophisticated financial users, right, are trying to ask questions like that. Like for example, what is going to be the impact of AI in our revenues? Okay, so this is typically, one thing that portfolio managers are very interested, right, into asking, right? Okay. Okay, so that's one way to look at the okay, so let me come back. Okay. Also, in addition to that, so the course is 20 hours, right? Okay, so in 20 hours, there's a lot to cover, right? Okay, so we will not be able to see every imaginable technology, right? We also have to say that in many occasions, right, financial tasks are kind of be done using obviously a good data set, good prompting, right? Um, Obviously RAG, retrieval-augmented generations, and obviously the use of agents, right? So agents will be an important part of the future of, right? And agents are also supposed to help in many tasks in which you need some sort of multi-step reasoning, right? Or even multi-agent reasoning, right? Which is going to be very important. Like for example, you're trying to answer a question about credit, right? And what you want to try to do is some sort of, yeah, right. Yeah, Sarah is obviously right. I guess prompting is a language, right? Prompting is the way you talk to the LLM. Prompting is different from every, you have to talk differently to GPT-4o, sorry, to Claude 3.5 Sonnet and Gemini Advanced. All of them require from us a slightly different language, right? When we ask something, right? So this is also something that it's kind of a problem. So there's no generality into the prompting technology. Even as the same element, as it evolves, right? Sometimes it gives you different answers, right? So, right. But clearly, the best way to interact with the elements, like the best way to interact Oh, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, let me finish and then I'll address these multimodality comments. But right, we don't think, right, um, yeah, the technology is not there for some of the modalities, right? I have to say, or at least the things we've seen, right? In finance is about text and numbers, right? And these current LLMs do that very well, right? Also, obviously, audio is important, but we have the and we will see examples of the earnings call transcripts that are very rich for portfolio managers, right? Okay. But I haven't seen a convincing example of multimodality, but maybe next month we see one, right? But we haven't seen right, and when I see multimodality, I mention video. I specifically mean video, right? Okay, I don't know if that answers, right? Okay, so fine tuning, right? Lecture 4 is going to be about quantization and sharding, right? Lecture 5, we talk about basically, pretty much all technologies about fine tuning, right? RLHF, LoRa, QLoRa, GPTO, QTO, and so on. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. No, we will talk about PDFs. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we will talk about PDFs, right? Yeah. PDFs are an important thing, right? Maybe let me say it's now, right? I think the current technology in PDF is much better than it was like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, right? So you can read that in our paper, right? In our paper, LLMs as financial analyst, in which all three LLMs read very well, right? All the tables that they see in a 10Q, right? Or in an earnings call. Okay. The problem, I would say, not the problem, but let's say one caveat, right, is when LLMs are confronted to, right, like for example, a very large spreadsheet. Okay. So spreadsheets, very large spreadsheets, continue to be an issue, right? Today, I think maybe in 3 months, 6 months, LMS will be to digest very well, right? Um, okay. So PDFs are always a question mark to what extent LMM will. Again, current technology that we tested a month ago, results were pretty convincing in reading well a PDF. What was harder was to read an Excel file. Okay, for example, you pick the JP Morgan, right? You pick the JP Morgan XLS that you can find in investor relations in the JP Morgan website, and literally none of the three LLMs, the commercially available, let's say, more powerful LLMs, right, are not able to digest well, all the different sheets and balance sheets and so on. Oh, yeah. Well, there are different ways, but one is obviously, uh, again, one is very simple, right? It's like, I don't know, GPTO allows you to upload quite a lot of things, right? So, for example, right, let me see if I find something, but yeah, I will try to show, you JP Morgan earnings. Okay, so here I'm uploading, right, a PDF directly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Jorge, but yeah, but again, current technology, I mean, that we've tested a month ago is like pretty much all documents that companies release in a quarterly, right, in a quarterly earnings report, are well digested by an LLM, right? Like that, right? If you want to do a mass, then you do need to do, different technologies that we'll see. But if you have a small problem, like again, I have JP Morgan's 3/4, 24. Can I get the LLM to some sort of tell me something about it? And here we'll see, for example, right, uh, that it can be done. Anyway, so, but we will see all that. Okay, so fine tuning is something we'll discuss extensively, but obviously when I say extensively, it's during 2 hours, not more, right? Then we'll deep dive on RAG, retrieval-augmented generation, which is obviously, a big part of what LLM experts do these days, which is that we have a data set that belongs to the company, that are PDFs, or that can be in other formats, and we want the LLM, to have access to it and to read, and so on, right? So that's why we will spend quite a lot of time doing RAG. Then we'll discuss agents. Agents are part of agents will be part of what we, if you've done some sort of reinforcement learning, right? Which LLM, which some of these tasks, right? Can be some sort of framed, right? It's obviously you have a multi-agent and multi-time some sort of task, okay? And that's where LLMs, yeah, yeah, okay. Okay. So for example, as I said before, so what would be an example in which agents some sort of help? For example, when you want to use, for example, neurosymbolic approaches, like for example, you have mm, again, we just wrote a paper that some sort of does reasoning using neural methods, which is basically the transformers, but also neurosymbolic approaches, right? So for example, if you do portfolio allocation or portfolio optimization, this could be seen as two things, right? One is you do supervised learning to figure out the returns. And second, what you do is a neurosymbolic, let's say, quadratic optimization problem with the returns and the covariance metrics, okay? And the agents, some sort of, or LLM as an agent, should be choosing among these neurosymbolic approaches or neural approaches, right? In which, again, you need to be combining some of the optimization problems with some sort of supervised learning problems and so on. Other things that we see agents like being very useful is when you have tasks along the way, right, in which you want an agent is behaving in a specific way, right? Why do I mean by that? For example, you are doing credit, you are looking. Let me some sort of talk about a specific example, right? So if we for example, have uh, Caterpillar. Caterpillar is a capital goods U.S. company, right? And imagine that we want to some sort of say, so what's about, right? The credit, some sort of the credit assessment of Caterpillar. We also have examples about that. it might be interesting to do several things, right? For example, one agent could be tasked about, okay, so you will be the one, taking care about the risks, of the company. One other could be tasked about, you're going to be taking care of the growth and discuss growth about the company. And we can then use all the agents to discuss about the credit profile of a company, right? Okay, so that's one. So a lot of people like Accenture and entity data and so on are, as we speak, doing implementations of agents, right, in finance. We'll also see that agents here, right, are kind of a little trickier, right, than in another contexts. Why is that? Because here you have, hallucinations, right? So when you have hallucinations, it means that whenever you are expecting the element to call a function, it might not be calling the function, and so on and so forth. So there's kind of a lot of tweaking that needs to be done in order to align the let's say the accuracy needed for a task, and also the judgment that you use from the LLMs, right? Okay. Then we'll have a session with Nicole about AI safety, right? So you would say, right, LLMs are already, have a layer of safety, right? So some of them have, right? But for example, Grok 2 doesn't have an AI safety, right? Okay. Or for example, you want to do a financial, you want to use a financial chatbot, right? But obviously, you don't want the chatbot be discussing about, I don't know, IKEA new products, right? So you want only the chatbot to be discussing about, I don't know, mortgages, for example. So Nicole Konigsten, who's done with me, Nicole and I did a safety presentation for the ACM, the computer machinery, right? In which we talked extensively about safety. Then we'll also be discussing about things we know very well, right? Because we have a long experience in sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis is this idea of, you read a text, you need an article, right, about Tesla, right, and you want to know if the article is positive or negative, and so on, investment-wise, right? There's a lot to say about sentiment analysis, LLMs, and all NLP systems, right? And while some people think that you can use LLMs to do sentiment analysis, I kind of don't share, at least today, the same opinion that you can some sort of do sentiment analysis in a proper way. Financial report passing, this is a bit what was being discussed before, and again, what's improving as we speak, right? Well, you can read, let me show you our paper as a reference. Okay, this is our paper called Large Language Models as Financial Analysts, right, which had 262 downloads since 5 p.m. Again, in which we do test the three commercially available, right, LLMs, reading Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, Apple, and Tesla, right, first quarter materials, right, 10Qs, earning releases, and so on, right? What is not here, obviously, is this example that I gave, right, in which the current state, this is my opinion, right? But the current state of modality, as Jorge was kind of is that, to the best of our knowledge, it only struggles when it finds very large spreadsheets, right? Where this happen, right? This happens especially where with banks, for example, with JP Morgan, Bank of America. So for the banking sector, you're going to need, right? So there are other solutions, right, in order to some sort of offset some sort of modality issue that arises with big CVS files or XLS files, right? Sometimes you can kind of some sort of overcome these issues by doing OCR, right? And some sort of read that, right? Read the balance sheet here in OCR forms, right? Take a picture of the balance sheet of JP Morgan, and then the machine some sort of understands it understands this. Okay, so that's a comment I wanted to make. We'll also be talking obviously about trading, right? We also have another paper that was about, can LLMs code, right? Okay, so this is another thing we'll see is another experiment we did with evaluating Gemini Pro, Mistral, Llama 2, GPT-4 Turbo in order to do, right, algorithmic trading, right? And results with GPT-4 Turbo, right, back in April, were pretty good in the sense that, the machine, it was kind of, do you know about algo trading? And second, are you able to code when I talk to you about MACD and all that kind of stuff, right? And back then, GPT-4 was really good. I would say that probably, if we talk about September, you would also say that Claude 3.5 Sonnet is kind of, it codes better, right? But it depends really pretty much on the context, right? I haven't specifically talked about coding, right? But we will see some examples, right? Of some sort of financial coding. Like, for example, if you ask some sort of Claude 3.5 or GPTO about I don't know, coding, a Q learning, a reinforcement learning, so to speak, Q learning implementation for trading, it does a pretty good job, right? Okay. We obviously see React, right? Okay, we'll see, right? Okay. And again, right? Let me show. Yeah. And we'll soon be talking about and during we will see this. Let me show some a reasoning paper that I wrote very recently. Yeah, it's called Advanced Techniques in Enhancing Reasoning Capabilities of Large Language Models in Finance. And here I talk about, again, neural approaches and neurosymbolic approaches, which is kind of things that are, being discussed as we speak, right, by Gary Marcus and so on. So the guys that kind of are saying, right, that the large language models do not reason enough, right? Do I think that, I think I think it's a little risky to say that, but I would say that for the best of my knowledge, as with a year and a half, at least in stock picking or in financial in let's say in balance sheet analysis, right? I do think that LMMs are really high level, right? We also did for a Latin American bank an example in which, we ask some sort of compare accounting approaches, right? Obviously, or US GAAP versus IFRB and so on and so forth. And also there, elements were surprising us in the sense that they were pretty good at kind of saying, what should I do to move on to some counting standards to another counting standards, right? Okay. So do not take for granted that you're going to need to take some sort of react or sometimes out of the box, right? Out of the box, DLMM, it's already knowledgeable in a specific aspect. Say, I don't know, the impact of renewables for a utilities company in the United States, right? So the machine knows about renewables, the machine knows about the different energies and technologies, and the machine is able to some sort of, right, without us, being very specific on the prompting, right? Prompting also, helps us into, maybe, giving the machine, some biases, the biases we know we want to have, right? Why do I say that? Is that sometimes, when you ask questions to the machine, we might be interested into, I'm a value person, right? So I'm asking you about buying stocks or ranking stocks, which is something that LLMs can do, and they do. And you can see that in our paper, right? But they say, okay, I want you to specifically consider more valuation, that may be growth aspects, or I want you to consider more, right? So prompting, is kind of, while we would be, willing all to have a general theory of prompting, things are kind of, I would say, more related to the domain expert, right, that knows about the specific bias in which it wants to talk about, right, to the machine and so on. Okay, so this will be, the course. It's 20 hours. There's again the recordings. There's a bunch of notebooks every week, and there's the discussions every Monday with the professors. The way we're going to evaluate you is that you're going to need to put together for lecture 9 a real-world LLM implementation, right? In which you some sort of pick a task, right, and try to adapt and so on. Other things we're going to be talking about, right, is something that nobody mentioned, but I will, is the idea of many things, right? Many hallucinations, many gaps. It's because the LLMs is lacking knowledge on a specific topic, right? If it's a topic that it's like, oh no, tell me about calculus, it can some sort of write something for you about calculus, but when it comes to have you read the latest papers on calculus, maybe the machine doesn't have access to firewall papers. Maybe the machine hasn't read Financial Times that are under a paywall. Okay, so do never assume that the LLMs have had access to all the information relevant for the task you want them to help you about. Okay, so check it. Like always in the prompt, asked right, and we will see that also on the prompting, right? about the sources, right? You need to ask about the sources, right? Always, right? So tell me, where did you read that, or where do you think, right? Okay, so the data set and the let's say knowledge exposure, right, is at the heart of many hallucination problems, right? Many hallucination problems arise because machine wasn't aware of, right, and so on. Another thing that, and then I will open it for questions, is hallucinations that come from, really hard problems, right? And for example, when you ask the all the LLMs about scientific papers, right? When they don't find papers, right, then they invent papers, right? Okay, so this is obviously a source of or books, and so on and so forth, right? So this is another source of hallucinations that you need to be paying attention to, right? Um, okay, so yeah, no, 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 no. And hallucinations don't RAG is, hallucinations come from different sources, right? Right. Hallucinations also come from the very same from the very same source of stochasticity that elements have, right? Hallucinations also come because the element also wants to answer no matter what, right? So sometimes it says, okay, give me 5 papers, I need to invented 2 papers. So no, hallucinations cannot be reduced to zero just by knowing everything, like reading everything about RGs. Things are much harder than that, right? Things are harder than that. Hallucinations come from different sources. If you can ask OpenAI, the CTO was also saying it's impossible to reduce hallucinations to zero, right? My experience is the hallucinations can be reduced to a reasonable level if you constrain the questions, if you make sure that the LLM knows everything about the topic, or knows the relevant aspects about the topic, and of course that is some sort of doing RAG correctly, in the sense that it's going to the right place in the data set, and so on, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But again, they're very hard problems that RAG, um, also, let me say something. RAG is not perfect, right? So maybe Jorge assumes that RAG is perfect. RAG is not perfect. RAG is a source of, sometimes is it the source of hallucinations, right? Okay. So it's not about only the lack of knowledge. LLMs inherently sometimes do mistakes, and your job is to some sort of find uh, places in which the LLM does mistakes, right? Like, for example, right? Let me put you an example, right? Like, for example, when you deep diving something, and the corpus of knowledge is small, like, for example, give me 100 papers of mathematics from last year. Okay. At some point, LLM starts spitting nonsense, because there's instead of saying, right, I only find 10, right? The rest, you have to, pay, you have to, buy to Springer, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. But we cannot tell you that, yes. Yeah, well, yeah, fine tuning versus RAG is kind of a nice discussion we will have, right? will have. You know, fine tuning, right? Is is very expensive, right? And so on. So we'll discuss all these things during the course, right? But let's say, yeah, your job when using LLMs, right, is kind of also understanding to what extent machine does repeatable mistakes because, as I said before, sometimes they're hard problems, right? They're very hard problems. Sometimes are there problems that do not have a grounded answer, and finance has most of them, right? So I think it's wrong to say, right? Yeah, I think it's wrong to say, right, that you know, doing fine tuning RIG, you're absolutely fine. You see, why you're not fine? Let me ask you a question. What misses even if you can some sort of do a perfect REG and fine tuning? Anybody? Okay. So as I said, so humans, we kind of are interested into some sort of high entropy tasks, like for example, finance, right? Where does the high entropy comes? Because we don't know the future of Apple, we don't know the future of Microsoft, we don't know the future of Google, right? Nobody knows, you know. But we can use elements to try to some sort of make scenarios and kind of say with the current things that we know from the past. We know everything from the past about Google, who are the founders, what is the string of revenues and net income and so on. What were the investments they do in the what were the patents that they've been and so on and so forth. Is that enough to predict with precision the future of Google? It's not. Okay. And then what we're interested is in the extrapolation abilities of the LLMs, which in the end probably are going to be the most important thing about the LLMs, the fact that they can help us extrapolate and they help us some sort of try to understand better the future. In a recent work with Deutsche Bank, right? Caio Natividade, my friend, he said, you know, one of the things we find interesting about the LLMs is the fact that we can some sort of make scenarios, right? And somebody might say, of course, you know, let's say, you know, data generation. LLMs can also be used with data generation. Obviously, we do share the excitement about using LLMs to, but obviously you have to be very careful about using LLM, you know, produced futures, so to speak, right? But it can certainly help you do highly sophisticated tasks, like for example, Deutsche Bank was doing, like saying, what could be the impact of a highly deflationary environment in oil stocks? So you cannot go to the data set because this has never happened, right? We've never had a highly deflationary environment. So in, I don't know, in the United States or in Europe, so at least with the, I don't know, as far as I know, right? And we don't know to what, and they weren't even, and when this happened, we obviously didn't have oil stock listed stocks, right? But we can use some sort of the LLMs to say, can you help me build scenarios? Other areas in which people is finding useful is this causality, is this all this causality, right? Which I find interesting with the idea, can we investigate causality with LLM, some sort of generated knowledge, so to speak? The answer is yes. You have to be very careful about these things, right? Okay. So I think again, LLMs in the future, and I think in addition to this encyclopedic knowledge about everything that has happened, because they have read everything, so they can you know talk to you with precision. what was the age of a specific Caesar when he died, right, and so on. So right, okay. But in addition to that, again, the extrapolation abilities of the LLM, the creativity. Um, Another thing we will be discussing in the course is this very nice idea of time elements. Okay, this idea of what happens if instead of giving a sequence of words, right, you give you sort of privileged trained an LLM in I don't know, in a gazillion different time series of I don't know, of different things, right? And then you give it another one and say, can you forecast? Can you do right? I don't know, outlier detection and all that kind of stuff, right? So also time elements, which again is some sort of the sequence aspects of the elements with numbers, right? Can these be some sort of an area in which LLMs can help? There we have a slightly different opinion, right? There we think probably LLMs will not be that useful as they are in other situations in which you clearly see that the LLM, again, you read our paper, you ask about, you go after this webinar and you kind of discuss about Caterpillar uh, credit profile, and you will see that oh my God, this is kind of a CFA, I would say even level 3 kind of discussion that I'm having with Caterpillar, with one of the sorry, best performing elements. Okay, so I think that the best examples of will be right the ones in which a domain expert understands well how it can improve its productivity with the LLM, right? And I can tell you for finance person that codes, that look at maths, that reads financial news, LLMs are really good on these domains and do require work because as Jorge was saying, right? So the machine hasn't read 10Ks and 10Qs, so you should have the machine reading them, right? Of course. But then when that happens, you see that the machine is kind of quite knowledgeable, right, on the different aspects of these companies, right, and can help you, decision making. You can also use LLMs with law contracts. Okay. One idea, right, that for example was I pick a contract, I ask the LLM, can you build some rules, right, logic rules out of a contract, right, and then try to find inconsistencies, so things like that, right? So again, everything that it's right, or other domains in which you can use the LLMs are right FOMC minutes, right? And I tell you that LLMs read OFNC statements and so on, and they kind of get some sort of even the same writing style, right? Yeah. So you'll have the recording around 9 a.m. EST, New York time, right? And we typically have we typically have the office hours with the professors at 11 a.m. EST. Okay, but they are recorded too, and you can ask questions in our platform, right? Another thing that I would like to say is that if this is a very dynamic and interesting environment, if some of you want to write a paper with us, right, investigate a specific topic, or you think you had a nice idea, right? And you want to again write a paper and publish, where I think this is the time in which good research needs to be disseminated. Other things that we've discussed and will be discussed on financial industry are, for example, to one extent, using LLMs can lead to concentration, crowding, and so on, right? So also regulators have quite a significant, I would say, I wouldn't say headache, but at least quite a significant kind of reflection, right? Um, in terms of how LLMs will change the ecology of financial markets. They certainly will help us digest information much faster. Okay. I think in 6 months, in 1 year, portfolio manager is not going to read anything. They're just going to, feed, right, all the stuff into an LLM. LLM will say, okay, so this is some sort of my thoughts on these Apple earnings. I think you should, there's some red flags and so on. Maybe you can use several of them, right? One idea of reducing hallucinations, okay, is making other LLMs check the outcomes of another LLM. Okay, so that helps you definitely to spot hallucinations very quickly, right? Okay, for example, you ask about 10 papers written by Einstein, and GPTO produces 2 that are fake, right? You feed these 10 into Gemini Advanced, say, check these references, let me know if these references are good and where they have been published. And they can use another one, and if all 3 agree, right, you say, okay, I'm pretty sure that, that the outcome is fine, right? So AI review or AI reviewers, right? It's something that you should also, right? Yeah, we will talk about we'll talk about real life cases, right? Yeah, obviously I don't want to miss create the false. We will talk about things that companies have published, they do, and so on, right? Okay, which are right. We cannot talk about things in which we've signed NDAs and so on, right? I also have to say that all of them, right, from asset managers to banks, are looking at this and are having the same issues, right? In the sense of, right, can we build a also maybe I wanted to mention something about reducing hallucinations and the RAG, right? That we've been kind of going back and forth with Jorge. One important thing that you have to be aware is that when you do RAG, you do quality control, right, and so on. When you've done RAG in all your historical, right, and you have tested, then it's done. You see, it's not something that you should, obviously you should be doing, you should be testing the quality, but what I'm saying is that you can do quite a lot of robust assessment in terms of when I'm asking the machine about, imagine that you build a chatbot, right? And we built a chatbot, right? And one of the issues was solving questions that customers were asking about credit cards. What kind of questions clients are asking about credit cards? So typically, what is the phone number that should I use to, right, do some sort of, what sort of fees you charge me if I'm trying to delay the payment, I don't know, 6 months and so on. What sort of annual fee the credit card has and all that kind of stuff, right? And if the machine, any LLM, reads some sort of the instructions that humans have, you know, mm, you know, the accuracy of the chatbot, it's almost 100. The problems appear when obviously you've not done enough AI safety, and you allow bizarre questions, right? Then hallucinations might right. So you should contain, right, the questions you ask and so on. Okay, so I hope that. So yeah, somebody, send me a LinkedIn, right? Nidin, if you want to talk about, right? Obviously, the project is a good opportunity to some sort of write a paper, right? Any questions? Any other questions? Okay. Again, right? So thank you very much, right? If again you either during the course of you miss you thinking we missed something that you think is relevant, so obviously, right, we're eager to incorporate, right? Obviously we can't see all, we can RAG, for example, is a massive, right? It's some sort of a hugely, right? Here we focus on the main aspects, right? So also again, right? I think that in some areas LLMs are already very good, so you just don't need to do, right? Okay. And yeah, thanks for attending this information session. We hope we can see you in October. And yeah, thank you very much.